Welcome back to Adventures Unpacked, episode 2. So we're sticking around. We're going to do this moving forward. And joining me again this week is Jeff.
Hey, everybody.
How you doing, Jeff? Good morning, man.
Yeah, it's morning for me. I'm doing pretty well. It's we just had a big storm pass through, wind shaking the beams of the house and rain for two or three consistent days. Yeah, I'm feeling a little warm and toasty by the fire, which is nice. Love having the fireplace. Storm's passing, and we're gonna have clear weather.
The U.S. has been getting hammered by storms as well back here, so everything's on fire and covered in dust. And
oh, geez, the whole world is
it's falling apart. Yeah,
every place I know.
Pretty general.
All right. Well, on that note,
falling apart. Yeah, welcome back. So we're Adventures Live. Like I said earlier, this is the Unpacked podcast. We are going to take about an hour or so out of our day to kind of sit down with an adventurer who has recently recorded some type of adventure vlog for us on our main YouTube channel, Adventures Live. Just kind of ask them about the trip, any further details that didn't make it into the video, and their personal experience doing something really, really cool outside. This week, we're going to be talking about Jeff's, how would we even describe this? Jeff's summer trips. What would you describe these trips?
I mean, I describe it as life-changing for sure.
So you spent a couple months out in Wyoming. We talked about it a little bit last episode for your staff training, and this is kind of a continuation for that. But you were working as a guide this past summer out in Wyoming, guiding a group of students into various like outdoor recreational experiences, right?
Yeah, I was working for this company. I had worked in outdoor education before, but this was my first opportunity to get into the backcountry. So last episode, we talked about my staff training trip. And this episode, we'll talk a little bit more about the actual trips that I was preparing for when I was going on that staff training trip. And I was able to implement and put to use all of the skills that I learned on that trip. And of course, I was put into situations that there's no training for. There's just figure it out on the fly. And there were plenty of those. So yeah, this most recent video covers that whole summer.
And it's a big one. It's a big episode. We have spent a large amount of time trying to figure out how to create this video. Like I said, Jeff spent a couple months out in Wyoming, and we were trying to just pack everything into a consumable video, I think, that people could sit down and just like watch through and understand what that experience looks and felt like. And boy, that was a hefty task for us. But I think it came out quite nicely. And kind of like Jeff was saying, this is a continuation. So this is kind of like part 2 of Get Out There, your staff training video that we had put out previously.
Yeah, I mean, it mirrors the process that we're going through with Adventures Live, right? This was, with the staff training trip and into this first summer, this is my first experience with all of these things. I mean, I'd kayaked one time before, but never in the backcountry. So first time backpacking, first time backcountry kayaking, first time climbing outdoors that wasn't in a very controlled setting. And absolutely, it's my first mountain for sure. So, I mean, it was first for so many things. And in that way, it mirrors what we're doing with Adventures Live, right? Like we're restarting and we're kind of taking everything in this new direction because we have this shared passion. And that's all really exciting and nerve-wracking, just like it was for these trips.
Yeah, not only is it your first time doing all those activities, but this is kind of still your first time filming at all. You kind of dipped your toes into it for the staff training, and I think that turned out really nice. But then we were at this point when you were filming this, we were just kind of still in the air. We're not sure if you'll have time to film at all because the summer's going to be so packed and so hectic, and you have a group of teenagers that you're responsible that they survive in the outdoors. That's a lot of shit going on. And I think I was extremely excited when you got back to somewhere with Wi-Fi and you started uploading all this footage. I was like, oh, okay, we can do something with this. And then from there, I think we mentioned it last time, it just snowballed. So you kind of hopped on board after this. But no, I think I think it's kind of a miracle that we got a video out of this with everything on top of your, your plate. But I'm really glad we did, and I'm excited to share it.
Me too. I had no idea what this would end up looking like, and didn't for months after it was up. Right. I mean, there's a decent amount of raw footage, but again, it was my first time recording. Besides the staff training, right? The staff training was an interesting one, but I had more time because it was all adults, right? I was kind of on my own time when I wasn't being taught how to do X, Y, or Z. And so I had more time to sit down in front of the camera and make sure that the framing was correct and choose a good spot. And this time, that's just not at all how it worked, right? Every day was go, go, go. I was on 24/7, so many nights just waking up in the middle of the night to handle a situation means that maybe I'm more tired the next day and I'm not thinking about what to record, or if I do end up remembering to set everything up, the framing might not be right, which I think you noticed a couple of times in the video. And that's just, we keep it in because that's how it was. Like that.
It's authentic.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's the best that I knew how to do in that time. And I think as we make more of these videos, you'll see the production quality increase in how we are able to record, what we're able to record. And that comes from this learning process. So like, as I learn how to do this better, how to capture these moments, and not just press record and leave something going for 3 days at a time, have infinite SD space. I think you'll be able to see the growth as well in the things that we attempt, and the adventures that we go on. We take things to the next level, increasingly so, in a relatively short period of time. I mean, it's been less than a year since I went on these trips, and to be where I'm at now, which we'll get to as we continue to make more of these videos and share these stories. But I feel like I've definitely taken a sharp rise in all of these different adventures, and it's entirely possible because of these summer trips.
I have already seen that growth, so that's absolutely something that the audience will be seeing as we kind of go through our backlog, because we've got plenty of extra footage from various adventures after this that we're currently working through, and it's just improved from there. But if we want to kind of dive into this one specifically, it like we said earlier, it was a huge video, and if we want to even give a peek behind the curtain here a little bit, when I first got the footage, I was afraid that we didn't have enough to tell an engaging story. And halfway through the editing process, Chef was like, hey, guess what? I found a whole bunch of extra footage that we can add to this. And now I feel like we've got almost too much footage of good stuff. So it's a good issue to have, but it's a lot that we're cramming into what for us seems like a little small amount of space, but it's going to be probably one of our bigger videos.
Definitely. I mean, 20 plus minutes, whatever it ends up being. I mean, that's double the length of the last video, and it'll probably beat our average length by quite a bit. So, it's a big story, and it's appropriate, right? The staff training was 3 or 4 days total, and the summer trips was 6 weeks worth of experiences.
Yeah, it was a big trip. So would you like to kind of delve into that a little bit and tell the viewers what this trip actually looks like? Because we present it as one kind of continuous experience, but in reality, this was 2 very similar trips over that summer span that we took the best of both worlds and cut it into one experience. So do you want to kind of give a rough overview of what those 2 trips looked like?
Sure. Yeah. So they look very similar. They're sort of like copies of each other, but with differences, because that's how life works, right? There's lots of logistics involved in how we plan these trips. And so, you think about when you're going to have a day hike in this trip versus when you're going to have a town day in this other trip. And so you got to plan things out so everyone has, a good time, which is the end goal, right? We want everyone to be safe and learn things, but at the end of the day, we just want everyone to have fun. So in order to do that, we structure the trips slightly differently, but the big chapters, as we've called them here, were the same. So each of them had a backpacking chapter, each of them had a kayaking chapter, and each of them had a climbing chapter. That ended up being, like a climbing school, a summit, like approach day, and then the summit. That was kind of how both these trips broke down, and they were both in similar areas. The biggest difference being where we backpacked. So our first backpacking trip was in the same area actually as our staff training trip, which was really interesting for me. It was nice to be able to get, familiar with the territory before going out there with students, because that's a lot of extra pressure. And then the second trip was in the Wind River Range. So they're actually both in the same national forest, but that national forest is so big right now. But that national forest is so big that it actually covers both of those areas, even though they're 4-hour drive from each other in Wyoming, which is really, really cool. Totally different sections of Wyoming, but same forest.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that's the Grand Teton National Forest, correct? Same spot as last time that we talked about last episode.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous. If you haven't had a chance to get out there, I highly recommend it. It's vast and it covers everything from, dense forest like I was in my first trip, as well as, just expansive mountain ranges in the Wind River Range, including the highest peak in Wyoming. It's just absolutely stunning. Yes. Highly recommend.
So that was your backpacking section, correct? Was within that forest?
Yeah, so that was the backpacking. That's really the biggest difference between these two trips. Besides that, they're very similar. The kayaking section was a similar route, with going from Lewis Lake through the channel up to Shoshone Lake. The only difference is there, we didn't end up getting to the geyser basin the first trip, just too windy. Windy and too tiring. The second trip, it was a little bit, we had fairer weather and we were able to get there in the afternoon. So we got the geyser basin on the second trip. And then besides that, the climbing was the exact same between the two trips, except, it was later in the season. So we had to deal with some smoke, which made the climbing a little tougher for sure.
Yeah, but that's kind of the craziest part to me still about this whole video is we do present it as one experience, but in the end you did, spoiler alert for the video, but you did summit the Grand twice. So that's a cool feat that doesn't really come across in the video.
Yeah, 2 times. And I got to go up 2 different routes, which was really cool. And I had the same guide on both of my trips, which is pretty unlikely. I learned afterwards to have the same guy on both. But yeah, I first trip went up like a harder route that's better for when there's a little bit more snow and ice, because that was the beginning of the season, at least the main season that students could safely go. But we were the first, actually, that's an interesting note. We were the first student group to go up that summer.
Really? Yeah, I didn't know that.
I say that, I say that not to insinuate that there's a lot of student groups that go up the Grand Teton. There's not. It's a limited number. But for those that do, we were the first ones to attempt it that summer, which was really cool. And yeah, there was some decent snow and ice on the route. It was so cold that I brought my water bladder, which was a mistake. I didn't need it. But besides the fact that I didn't need it, I couldn't use it. The water in the tube froze over.
That's crazy. Yeah, I had no idea you had that with you.
Yeah, so the first route, it was super, super cold and windy and snowy and icy. So we went up a more challenging route by climbing grade, but it was better for the conditions. And then the second one was easier climbing grade, and it was more of like the main path that everyone goes up. And that was compared to the first one, almost like walking. Like it's just
night and day.
Really challenging and scary on the first one, which is most of what you see.
Sure. If we want to jump back a little bit, you had mentioned earlier that this was like a life-changing experience for you. Do you want to go into a little bit more about that?
The main feeling I feel when I think back to the summer trips is gratitude for, I'm going to say first things first, my coworker, Berkey, just my teammate through the whole thing. You know, we had our ups and our downs, but through it all, we stuck together and we did the thing, you know?
Definitely did.
And it was really, really hard. I'm really glad I had the experience I had leading into this experience, this job, because it prepared me for, you know, the challenging aspects that were more of like the education side of it, right? So when it came time to navigate student dynamics or build rapport or, you know, go with the vibe or create a feeling for the group or set boundaries, like all of these things that need to happen in order for the group to flow cohesively and enjoy their time together. I knew how to do that, broadly speaking. And so Berkey and I were able to work together and kind of like just have that happen in the background. Like we made sure it happened intentionally, but it wasn't like where most of my brain was, right? Like I was able to have that be sort of like automated happening on one hand. And then with my other, I was able to focus on logistics and what are we doing the next day and getting a schedule down. And thank God for Berkey. Again, I'm going to shout her out because she was like the brains and I was like the heart. So that's how I kind of separated it in my mind, is she was like so good with scheduling, so good with keeping us on task, making sure we didn't forget things. And I was like making sure that we were focusing on the vibe for the students. And yes, if the schedule says we need to do this, but if the students are feeling one way, and then the brain and the heart had a discussion on what do we prioritize. Really challenging trip in many ways. I mean, I was pushed to my limits in terms of my energy and what I was able to focus on. There was a kayaking day where I had maybe 3 hours of sleep the night before. And yeah, it felt that way.
Yeah.
It felt like I was a walking zombie. And yeah, just driving into Yellowstone at 4 a.m. with basically a bus full of students. And we get in there and it's time to kayak for a whole day, you know, and pull our kayaks upstream. And my goodness, just such a challenge. So, yeah, there were good days and there were bad days. And through all of it, I built really good connections and I learned so much about, you know, both technical skills, but also like what I'm capable of. That's what I feel internally. Like when I think about myself, that's what I feel most grateful for is, the willingness. I want to say courage because that's part of it, right? Like when there's that fear, it takes that courage to push through. And I definitely felt that in some moments. But yeah, I feel grateful to have persevered through those challenges and come out the other side a more interesting person, I think.
I think so. Not much more interesting, but a little bit. No.
Yeah, don't get too high and mighty.
No, absolutely. We were keeping in touch during this because this was early days of us figuring out if we were going to try and film together and set up Adventures Live. So we were trying to stay in touch pretty much as often as you can with someone who's spending a summer in the backcountry. And it just seemed like you were going nonstop with one crazy thing after another. And it just seemed like a lot. So I'm really glad that it was a positive experience for you. You had these really cool trips and successes and even, you know, useful failures, we'll call them. But yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, you made something for us, which I think is the most important thing to me. And you made it out alive, I guess. Nobody died.
Yeah. In the rank order of things that we're grateful for, it's
right underneath
got footage. And I survived, and then I learned things.
Yeah, so if we want to just jump in, the video starts right into the backpacking section, but even at the beginning of that, we kind of sprinkled in a little bit of your day hikes. So you guys went on a number of day hikes for both trips, just kind of around, I believe, the Grand Teton National Park, correct?
Yep. Yeah, we had a day hike in Grand Teton as well as a day hike in Yellowstone on both trips.
So if you just want to give me a brief summary of each of those, I know you had the bear encounter on one of those. I believe it was in the Grand Teton. It's right at the beginning of the videos. So if you want to just kind of give me a brief overview of both of those.
Yeah, they couldn't be more different. The the Grand Teton day hike was my first day on the job with students, and it started off strong with a 3 or so mile hike to a waterfall, and pretty much right after that, the students were like, "Okay, well, what else?" Right? Like they had lots of energy, which is exciting, and so we challenged them on a hike around. All of Jenny Lake, which so our hike went from 3 to 5 miles round trip to it was over 9 miles.
And that first waterfall that you mentioned, that was Hidden Falls, right? Is that what?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We hiked to Hidden Falls on the first day, and the students just wanted more, so we pushed farther. And almost directly after that, we had a bear encounter. I got within 5 feet of a baby cub.
It looked very close from the footage.
And that was after we had backed up a decent amount. Like I want to make it clear to any animal, wildlife encounter enthusiast. The first thing I did was not bring out my phone. That was after we had backed up to a safe distance. And I was able to still capture something. So I got a little best of both worlds there. But
you're filming it while actively walking away. Like we can just barely see the bears through the trees, and that's good enough. And I think I'd mentioned this to you. I don't remember if it was on the last episode or if it was off air. I was really hoping to see some bears when I made it out to Wyoming with you, and I didn't end up doing that. So for them to get that, their first day is an equally terrifying and exciting experience. Everyone just walked away without any bear-human conflict.
Yeah, it was really scary to be right in the front and right next to the baby cub and her mama. That was spooky. But yeah, so they had a bear encounter, and they also saw moose. They saw 2 moose later down on that trail. Yeah, so they just got very lucky. I guess we all did, right? We were all there. So we just got very lucky on our first day. Bear, moose, so many cute little animals, and of course the mountains in early June are just stunning. So very, very beautiful day. And compare that to the day hike that we had in Yellowstone. Oh my goodness, they were so different. Grand Teton National Park is smaller than Yellowstone for sure, but it's just organized differently. Yellowstone's the first national park the United States ever created, and it's organized that way. It's sort of like there are roads that come in from each cardinal direction because the whole thing is basically just a square. So they kind of organize it so it all kind of comes into a big roundabout is kind of how it's designed. And so everyone is on that main highway once you kind of get into the roundabout, and it's huge, right? It's a beautiful, beautiful park. I highly recommend people go.
Absolutely, yeah.
But I don't think I'm gonna convince anyone by saying it wasn't my favorite when we get into the crowded areas, because when you get into Grand Teton National Park, the crowds are mostly at the pullover spots where you can stop and take pictures. Because the main attraction are this like beautiful mountain range, right? It's just one cohesive spot right off to the side of the road. So that's the busiest spot there. In Yellowstone, I mean, obviously you have Old Faithful, you have Grand Prismatic, the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. And so there are lots of these little hot spots, but because there's this one highway, it's designed as though you can get out of your car and be there for 10 minutes and then get back in the car and keep driving. And because of that, it allows more people to go, which is great. But for me, it was just a little too crowded. Like it was so packed that, especially around the Old Faithful geyser, that's just like huge tourist trap, and very cool experience. But the people it was a huge downside for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Old Faithful is right behind its visitor center, and I believe right next to the visitor center is like an inn and a restaurant and like a shopping boutique. Like you'll hear, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Yellowstone. I cannot wait to go back and experience more of it. But you'll hear often people will refer to it as like the Disneyland of the national parks, and it is kind of like that. It's very much like you said, like drive to each hotspot and then keep moving on, which is awesome because we got to experience a lot of it in one day. But there is a bit of a separation between like the nature and wildness of it. Coming up after this, your next video for us, I believe you did a solo backpacking trip through Yellowstone. So you got to experience kind of that more isolated aspect of it, away from all the crowds and tourists and the Turons of Yellowstone, if you will. So we'll keep moving on here. We'll go to the actual backpacking section after this, I think. Hi guys, Noah here again. I'm going to just take a quick second in the middle of the episode here to talk about our Patreon. We do have a Patreon, so if you'd want to jump over there and show us monetary support, that would mean the absolute world to us. And if you're not wanting to do that, still come over. You can join for free, and we've got plenty of free resources. We're wanting to offer additional learning resources and exclusive content designed to support you on your outdoor journey. Free how-to guides that will teach like basic outdoor skills and knowledge that will encourage you and build up the confidence for you to go out and come adventure with us. Multiple different tiers. We've got Wanderer, Adventurer, and Explorer, so you can choose your level of patronage to us. And you will also gain access to our adventure package, which are essentially a big packet full of information that would help you recreate the adventures that you see here on Adventures Live. So whether that's itinerary, maps, resources, skills, you can find it all there. So the whole goal of our Patreon is to give you, the explorer, resources to feel confident and have the knowledge to get out there and explore. We know from our own personal experience that it's sometimes really daunting to get out into the outdoors. So we're trying to just lower that bar as much as possible for everyone. We would love if you show us some support on the Patreon to help us keep this thing going. And at the end of the day, the biggest thing we can ask for is for your interest. So if you like these videos, if you're commenting, giving us a thumbs up or giving us a review on the Spotify or Apple Music, that helps us a ton. And just if you like these videos, let anyone else you think might like these videos know. All right, let's get back to the episode. So after you guys got through with these day hiking sections, each respectively with these groups, you guys actually got into your backcountry backpacking section of these trips, which again were both in different locations. One was in a similar area to where you were for the staff training, which would be the Buffalo Fork River, and then the other one was in the Wind River Range. Do you want to kind of give some details about those as well? Where were you? How many days were you in each location, and what was the mileage looking like?
So the first trip was just under 30 miles total, and it was like a loop is how we described the trip, or the route type. So we kind of enter into a point, and then instead of turning left, which is what we did for our staff training trip to get to Soda Fork Meadows, we turned right, and that took us out south of this mountain, Terrace Mountain, and then we connected with other trails, one of them actually being the CDT.
I was just going to ask, yeah.
We connected with that, and we looped around, eventually got back towards Soda Fork Meadows, and then we exited out the same little short tail that we entered through. And then the Wind River Range was just short of 50 miles, I want to say. It was a lot longer, and it was a point-to-point. So rather than just looping out or an out and back, we started in one location and we ended nearly 50 miles southeast of where we started, and we exited out towards another parking lot. And we actually, some of the logistics behind that, you need to have like a van transport. Mm-hmm. So we hired like a company who took our van from one parking lot to the other, which I learned existed on this trip. I want to highlight a moment in the first trip that sticks out to me. It's actually where the sunset comes down and we've got those beautiful colors, the mountains in the background. I'm wearing my puffy coat. I'm just staring at it with the tents in the background. I felt really grateful in that moment and really, really tired because at that point we're halfway through that route. And the way these trips are organized, you don't have set camping spots for every single day on the trail. There are kind of suggested camping spots based on previous experience and previous trips, but it's really up to Berkey and I to decide where we're going to camp that night. And it's off of how the students are feeling, how we're feeling, the environment, good spots. And so, we had hiked for so long that day. I was getting really irritable. We decided I was at the front of the line. That's just where we felt most comfortable. Berkey enjoyed being in the back. I enjoyed being in the front. And the challenge about being in the front is that it's not as easy to maintain conversation with my students behind me. I mean, I managed it pretty frequently, but it's a little harder than if they were right next to me or in front of me. And so it's somewhat more of an isolating experience, and my mind is always on direction, right? I'm looking for hazards, I'm looking for animals, I'm looking for clues of animals, right? I'm making sure that we're making enough noise. I'm trying to ensure that we don't make a wrong turn, because the trail isn't always super obvious. And that's a really scary thought, that I could lead, 14 people in the wrong direction in the middle of the woods. So constantly checking my physical map and compass because my phone was not usable because I'd lost my power bank. So I couldn't use it for navigation. It's a fun little challenge. But anyway, all that to say, that day we were looking for our camping spot, and we had been looking for over a mile. And at that point, you're trying to communicate while also not freaking the students out, because that's one thing that can freak them out really quickly is, wait, we don't know where we're staying. What do you mean? What do you mean we don't know? And we're looking primarily for a water source, because we need to have water to cook dinner and to drink water to purify, right? We need water. And it was really hard to find it for a while, but we finally did, when it was actually a moment when Berkey and I were like, do we push on another mile to see if we find more? Does everyone take a break and I will run ahead, no pack, and just scout it?
Yeah.
And Berkey was like, wait, hold on, shush. And then she ran over, just no heads up at all. She just sprinted in the opposite direction of where we were standing, ran right past the students, in through this field, and she ran for about 100 feet in one direction. And then she just yelled in joy, and she was like, guys, I found it. Damn. And there was this tiny little stream that we could use. It was just enough. Yeah, so that was a really beautiful moment that encapsulated the experience, right? There's what the maps say, and then there's what actually happens when you're on the trail. And that has been true in every trip I've ever taken, right? There's the plan, and then there's what happens.
Yeah.
And it's all of the beautiful space in between that makes the trip unique to you and your group, and what makes it so fun.
It's those unexpected moments that make the story, So going through the backcountry with a group of students, I feel like that adds another layer of stress onto everything. Were there any added difficulties that caused you guys to run into, or that you had to overcome to figure out?
Absolutely. I mean, when you have a bunch of people in the backcountry, you're leading a trip, there's a lot of logistics in terms of food, energy levels, if tents break or rain flies rip, or, in this case, we had teenagers. So when tent mates don't get along, right? There's everything from group management to supply management to logistics to energy balancing. I mean, you're responsible for guiding them through all of that, right? Like you're not responsible for their energy levels directly, but it's sort of like you make choices that influence that. And that will like it. A backcountry hike can very quickly turn into a death march if you are not thinking about all of these things. And no one has fun on a death march. So, yeah, that's kind of the bread and butter of being a guide in the backcountry, whether it's adults or kids, right?
Sure.
You got to think about all the layers. And so my brain was kind of like always on until I, finally inflated my sleeping pad and went to bed.
What was the biggest thing that you had to overcome on these two backpacking trips? Was there any one experience that really challenged you to think outside the box or just look at something differently than maybe you had before?
I would say they were challenging in their own ways. Like one big challenge, I don't know. I think the first trip was challenging more so. Like the big challenge there was it was my first time doing that. And so I felt like an imposter the whole time. So I didn't want to give off the vibe to my students that I was not confident in what I was doing, especially since I was in the front. Because, that's really unnerving to just follow some random man that you met a few days ago into the woods who doesn't know what he's doing, right?
Yeah.
That's immediately a red flag. So I wanted to make sure that they knew that they were safe. And the biggest challenge in the second one was endurance, I think, because at that point I was 3 weeks into the summer. I had already gone through all the other, I'd gone through everything one time, and it was time to do it again. And this time the hike was, almost double the length. And, the student dynamics were a little different. And so, keeping energy levels high on days where you have to average like 8 to 9 miles a day is not easy.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, endurance was really challenging.
And then just to kind of finish out this backpacking section, because I'd like to move on to some of the other stuff we got to talk about. You had mentioned earlier on that you had a bear encounter. Was there any more animal encounters in the backcountry that kind of took you guys by surprise or you had to deal with?
Yeah, actually, on the first trip, we made it back to Soda Fork Meadows. So this is towards the end of the trip. We had, I think, 1 or 2 layover days because we booked it. We kind of made more progress than we normally where we actually were expecting to make when we were making the plan. And so we get to Soda Fork Meadows a little early. We have a couple layover days. And on one of those days, we had a encounter with a grizzly bear at camp. Yeah, that was really nerve-wracking because it kind of walked in on us at camp while we were all kind of like at the fireplace. It was telling some sort of story, trying to wax poetic about something, lessons about life, things that they could think about later in their future, and I don't know, take something away from the trip. And while I was talking, my student kind of raised her hand and she was like, Jeff, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a grizzly bear right behind you. And I'd never turned around faster in my life. I was like, huh? And yeah, like 50 feet behind us, there was a grizzly bear encroaching on camp. And so everyone kind of stood up nice and slow. We got our bear spray out, Berkey and I both did, and kind of looked at each other with the eyes that we looked at each other with on our first hike in Grand Teton.
Sure,
It's kind of that wide-eyed, like, okay, time to kick it into gear, right? Like, pay attention,
lock in.
And so, yeah, we had the students get behind us and just stay calm, right? That's the number one thing, is like, don't freak out right now. Like, we need you all to just not scream, not do anything crazy. And we got the bear's attention, right? Like, hey, bear, whoa, bear. And as soon as it saw us, like, it figured out what we were. It was like, oh shit, and it just like ran off in one direction.
No interest. He's like, oh, my bad.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it was, it's hard to say it was small because it was a grizzly bear and it was huge. but I think it was younger. So I think it was scared of us, and I'm glad that it was, because we were scared of it. And if it figured that out, then that would not have been fun. So yeah, it was a nerve-wracking experience. But I think to diffuse the tension, I like walked with my students. We just got lots of distance from the bear, and Berkey kind of stayed in that same spot and just scanned the horizon that it kind of went over this ledge. And so she was scanning there, and I took the kids back, and I said something really stupid like, well, that was very scary. And, yeah, all my students did something very similar, either that or groaned. But I brought the tension back down.
Yeah, so diffuse it a little bit. Oh, that's good. I hope they had somewhat of a normal night. Did you guys end up packing up camp and moving locations then?
We just rearranged it. So all of the students' tents, we brought them all to this like one section. So they're all like right next to each other. And then, yeah, Berkey and I stayed right outside their tents until they all passed out. And I like played ukulele so they could, till they fell asleep.
Yeah. Well, cool. I'm glad another uneventful bear encounter. Those are the only ones I want to hear from you. Hopefully, knock on wood.
Yeah.
So cool. Yeah. If we want to jump into the kayaking section now, from the backpacking, you then hopped over to Yellowstone. From the backpacking section, you guys hopped over to Yellowstone and spent a couple days on two of the lakes over there. You want to kind of give a summary of what that looked like?
Yeah, so those were pretty much identical. That was an early morning start. We wake up around 3 or 4 in the morning. We were actually based just outside of Yellowstone for that night, and then we drive into the park very early before the gates open, and we drive up to Lewis Lake, which is maybe 45 minutes drive into the park, and we kind of gear up. It takes about 2 hours to get the boats out, put all of the food, all of the stuff into the boats. I mean, there's a lot of logistics and planning, and this is where Berkey definitely shined. She was able to think about how the meals needed to be like separated and who goes what into what boat. Is genius. So I just did what I was told. I was like, how do I help? So yeah, she directed that, and that's what we're doing for the morning. Is we're packing up the boats, we're getting everyone in their wetsuits, we're teaching paddle techniques, and this is where Hayden, who's not in really like shown in the video very much because there's just not a lot of footage of him. But Hayden is also, he's like one of our coworkers, and he's a kayak specialist. And so he came in and he was kind of like guiding that section because he's got all the knowledge around kayaks and how to be safe on the water, where Berkey and I don't. So he was able to really take that role. And, you know, he takes care of the boats and he drives the trailer, right? He's kind of like the man who runs that section of the trip. So yeah, we spend a lot of time near the boat ramp. It's freezing cold at that point in the morning, 5 in the morning. We get on the water by 6 a.m. for sure. And everyone's kind of learning their paddle techniques because they're all in double kayak and the instructors are in single kayak. And if you've ever been in a double kayak, you know that's just harder to navigate and move around. And
such a longer
compared
boat.
to them. Yeah, compared to them, the single kayak, we felt like race cars. We were like zipping around, moving left and right. So we get on the water at Lewis Lake. We cross over to the other side of the lake and then take the west shore north up to the end of Lewis Lake, where there's a channel that connects Lewis and Shoshone Lake. And we kayaked up that channel for as far as we could before the water got too shallow. And so we needed to get on the shore and switch things around, connect our NRS straps, which are just like these, thicker I don't know if they're always for water stuff, but I often see them with water stuff for strapping down kayaks. They're very effective. Loop our NRS straps around these hooks and then drag our kayaks for up to a mile upstream, which was super, super fun.
It's
Not at
probably
all exhausting.
the best part of kayaking is I'd have to think of when you get out of your boat and you have to drag it somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, that's usually like the thing that people kayak for, right? When they think about kayaking, they're like, I want to drag my boat upstream
Don't
with
want to
rocks
be
underneath
in
my
it.
feet.
Yeah, yeah. Don't want to be in my
Yeah.
boat.
Yeah. There's a ton of gravel and like small rocks that were coming through because of the stream. And so they were coming in and pushing underneath my foot and my shoe. So every step I took was like stepping on a bed of sharp, sharp rock.
Yeah.
And I was pulling a kayak full of supplies. So, I
Really
was not having a good time. It was really challenging. But it was also really fun. So like those are the moments that I was pushed to my like limits in terms of stress. And in those moments, I found that I go a little crazy. And by that, I mean like I took the environment and I let that kind of influence my style of crazy. So I went pirate crazy when we were kayaking. And I like had a pirate voice and I kind of just started singing sea shanties while we were going upstream. So yeah, I go unique crazy, environment based crazy for these kind of trips.
The mental decline is quick. But
yeah,
but it seems like for the most part it was worth it, because you guys made it up into Shoshone Lake and then made it up to the geyser basin, right?
Yeah. So we camp at Shoshone Lake, and after that night, then we have kind of like this layover day, quote unquote, where we have the same camp, but we attempt to get to the geyser basin on the other side of Shoshone Lake. Like I said, the first trip, we were not able to do that. The second trip, we did manage to get there. We do a little hike around the geyser basin, which was so cool. And I think I said, wow, this is awesome, or wow, that's so cool, at least like 20 times. And there's just nothing like it. I mean, it's very clear that you're on top of an active underground volcano, which is just a wild place to be.
It's striking how different the environment looks there, like just almost completely different than everything around it.
And what felt really special is that that's a hard place to get to, right? That it's not like the typical Yellowstone pull over the side of the road and look at it. You have to hike in really far or boat in order to get to that spot, which I really enjoyed. Made it feel a little bit more special. And then, you kayak back and sleep again that night. And then you go out the next morning, the same channel. And luckily we don't have to get out because it was kind of pushing us downstream. So we didn't have to like pull ourselves downstream too, which was good.
A nice little current makes a world of difference in kayaking. Cool.
Definitely.
Is there anything else you'd like to talk about the kayaking section, or does that kind of sum it up for you?
Oh God, the bugs. Oh my God,
Really?
bugs. There were so many mosquitoes. Is one of those things where like, if you stepped outside the tent, you need to have rain gear on, because there were, it was one of those, like you're sleeping in the tent and say you're just laying down, there's like this normal forest sound of maybe birds and the wind, because it's very windy in that area right off the shore. So we're just behind the trees. So the tree line's blocking most of the wind, and you can kind of hear the wind, you can hear the birds, and then there's this like humming that's like just below that. It's like a cacophonous humming.
Oh, no.
And like if you get close to the screen of your tent, you start to hear it's like taking over the sounds of the other sounds in the environment. And then you realize that you are surrounded by hundreds of mosquitoes, and they are ruthless. So yeah, that's a really tough area to be if mosquitoes is not your thing.
Unfortunately, mosquitoes are not my thing. I think for most people they're not, but that's so tough. Were they also just swarming you guys during the day? Like, did you have to continuously fight them off, or was it mostly just at night they'd emerge and consume your tent, it sounds like?
We had to be off the water by noon,
Mm-hmm.
just due to the current. And so that meant that we had this afternoon chunk where we could be on, on land, on the shore, but they were very active during the day. So what we had to do was basically just lay on the shore where the wind was strongest, and there could not many of them could survive the wind.
Yeah.
So we just kind of got wind blasted sitting in the sun for multiple hours after kayaking. It was a great opportunity to nap. I won't lie. Those are some napping afternoons.
Damn, that is just unfortunate. There's got to be some downside to these wonderful experiences, and usually it's the bugs or the mosquitoes, I feel like. After you guys did your whole kayaking section, you then moved on to climbing training, preparing to attempt to summit this crazy goal of the Grand Teton, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we had 2 days of climbing school, and then an approach day, and then a summit attempt day.
So how was it feeling for you prepping for, probably what you'd been looking forward to kind of in the back of your head the whole summer is trying to scale this crazy mountain that you've been, around the entire summer. Entering into climbing school, is this kind of like a mixed bag of like excitement and also like, oh shit, it's happening?
This is the part I felt least prepared for.
Mm-hmm.
Backpacking, I felt like I had some training, and I love the woods. So I felt comfortable with that. Kayaking, I don't feel super confident on the water, but I feel more comfortable, and I got better with it as I was on the water, and I had more practice with it, and it was fun. So that was cool. But climbing is not my forte in terms of like very traditional rock climbing. I'm just not a great rock climber. It's also not my passion or my joy to just be on the rock or do really difficult routes.
Yeah.
So, while I respected a ton, I was terrified, especially for climbing school, because this section as a whole, I was like, I don't even know if I'll be able to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, there's no guarantees. So, I might just embarrass myself in front of everyone and my students. Yeah, I was definitely the most nervous for this section.
So this was was it near Jenny Lake or near Hidden Falls when you guys were actually scaling the rock?
Yeah. So we took a boat and we crossed Jenny Lake. So we actually met up with the trail that we took on our first day through that day trip of Grand Teton.
Mm-hmm.
We go up towards Hidden Falls, and then we climb over this fence, and it's like a sign that says like climbing school only.
Okay.
And that's where the guides, the company we work with is called Exum.
Mm-hmm.
And I highly recommend them. If you're going to go in this area, you want to do this kind of trip, or if you even want to mimic this trip on some level, or any portion of it, you want to do climbing in the Tetons, Exum mountain guides. They're extremely professional, and I couldn't recommend them more.
Just building off of that really quick too, if you are looking to do similar trips to this or mimic this trip, there will be future resources available that we are creating, itineraries, maps, or recommendations for guide companies like that will be available on our Patreon at some point. So keep an eye out for that, and let us know if that's something you're interested in. All right, go ahead.
Love it. Yeah, patreon.com/adventureslive.
Yep.
The guides for Exum took us over the fence and to this section of rock that was nearby Hidden Falls. And the idea here is to put us in an environment where we are challenging ourselves on the technical rock, but also in our communication skills. And we're there. The guides are testing us to see how much we're able to follow their instructions when it's hard to hear them and it's hard to communicate back to them. Mm-hmm. So for them, it's incredibly easy rock. For me, very challenging. Mm-hmm. I had never done anything like that with those kind of expectations set on me. And so, I'm balancing not only the technical fears, but then also reassuring my students that are scared about how they're going to do, and guiding them in how to do these certain sections. So I was very focused on all of the educational sections where the guides were like, this is how you do this hold, and this is what your foot placement, how this helps here. I was like soaking in as much as I could, not just for me, but for my students.
Did you feel a little more equipped after the climbing school to then tackle the summit of the Grand?
Definitely.
Yeah.
definitely. I think what made me feel most comfort is the technical grade of the rock that we were on for climbing school was actually a little harder than what we were going to attempt on the Grand. So, minus the environmental factors, which absolutely play a factor. This was like the most challenging climbing that we were going to be doing on this trip. And when I got to the top, I felt much more comfortable. And they do a really great job teaching me like how to trust my shoes. Because when I first started, I just didn't, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to put your life on this idea of like putting your nose over your toes, because I don't know, your body doesn't naturally want to lean forward on a downward sloping rock.
Yeah.
But that's what you need to do for the rubber to have traction. So yeah, things like small details like that really, really helped me build confidence and trust in the gear and equipment I was using. And that allowed me to kind of center myself for my students.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do you want to just jump right into the approach? I mean, this is the big thing, right? At least for me, when you told me about this trip and then working through this video, this was kind of the most exciting bit to me. I don't know if it was for you, but is the two attempted summits of the Grand Teton. You know, the big thing when you land in Jackson Hole and you get off the plane, you look out and it's right there, sitting right in front of you. So how did that feel going into that?
Exciting and terrifying. Yeah, to a certain extent, it's like numb because a big part of this doesn't feel real, right? Like I spent multiple weeks, almost a month at that point, driving around the Grand and the Teton area. And so it just became a part of the backdrop or the fabric of my experience.
Yeah.
And to think that I was going to try to get on top of that thing that was really, really tall and magnificent sounded ludicrous and preposterous, genuinely. So
it is.
Yeah. And I think that's, at the end of the day, that's what it is. It's ridiculous that people attempt these things. Yeah. Also very, very exciting. I mean, I told myself that if I just get to base camp, then I'm happy. Like that was my goal, is like, just get to base camp and we'll see what that looks like afterwards. Right. Like I can give it a shot if I feel good, but I'm happy to stay back. And Berkey and I had an agreement on how he would navigate. If students didn't feel like they could go, if they were injured, or if they were at their max at the lower saddle, so that way we both got an attempt on the Grand. And so, we had agreements and I just felt good getting to the lower saddle. That was really my goal. And that was one heck of a hike. That day, approach day, is a pretty long one. It's 5,000 something feet of elevation gain, and it's a lot of it is on like bare rock.
Yeah.
And at that first trip, we were going up with a decent amount of snow too. So, and the guides are on a timetable of sorts. Like they have this idea of how to, like, where you need to stop. And so, yeah, the first section of the hike, which you actually did, it goes up until it splits off where we went for our hike. And then it kind of goes into a canyon if you go left. And we didn't stop until like maybe partway through the canyon, like halfway through the canyon. They were booking it up that mountain. So it was exhausting following them.
Yeah.
But it was also a really cool experience. The deeper I got into the mountains, the more real it felt.
Is that the moment in the video where you guys pause in that canyon and you kind of give a turnaround of that area and you literally say that you guys are booking it up the mountain? Is that kind of your guys' first break?
I forgot I said that. Yeah, that is that moment. We stop in the canyon, we have lunch. So it's about a 20-minute break. And
gotcha.
Then we get back on the trail.
You said like just kind of open rock and snow. Was it, were you guys dealing with like a lot of scree?
No, it was more boulder fields and talus fields.
Okay.
To get to, there's not a lot of scree. Now I know what scree is. I'm like, no, it wasn't really scree. It was, pretty, at certain moments, the path you get lost on, but because we had guides, they knew where to go.
Yeah.
And we were able to follow the general route up. I mean, the general route is just up the canyon, and then alongside the right side of the river. but you got to know where you're going, or else you could easily get lost. So
Yeah,
really
yeah.
grateful we had guides for that first time, for sure.
Did you want to talk about it's featured a couple times in the video, I believe, but there's forgive me, I'm forgetting the mountain name, but there's one main mountain with the ladder coming through it.
So that's actually not a ladder. It definitely looks like a ladder. I learned it's not a ladder the hard way when I was told by my guide that it was a ladder that people made in the 1800s just to make it easier to get up the Middle Teton. And I was like, wow, really? And then I told that fact to another guide. I was like, did you know about that ladder? And he laughed his ass off. He was like, buddy, that's not a ladder. Who told you it was a ladder? I was like, the other guide up at the front. He was like, he's busting your balls. Like, that is not real. But yeah, not a ladder. I don't remember actually what it is. I think it has to do with how like erosion and how rocks work. Go learn that from someone who's smarter than me. That's what I'm going to recommend to the people watching and listening to this. There are people who know what that thing is, but I'm not one of them.
And then I also would like to touch on this helicopter, man. I mean, we teased it last video. It's way more prominent in this video. But we don't actually explain it at all. So I think we'll take that opportunity to do it now. What's going on with that helicopter? It was a rescue helicopter, correct?
Yeah, that was a real operation that Search and Rescue was running in the mountains that day. We thought it could have been a training trip, but we were a little confused when the helicopter was coming in and out of the valley as we were going up the canyon. But yeah, it's the sound of the blades is just deafening when you're in the mountains. Everything echoes. We get up there and it becomes more and more clear as we are getting up there that the helicopter is landing at base camp and they're dropping off rangers that are going out there. And these are like specialized mountain rangers. They know what they're doing. Like I said, at that point in the year, there's a decent amount of snow on all the mountains. So we get up to base camp and the helicopter had made a couple of trips up to base camp by that point. We were there for, I think, their final landing of the day, and they were dropping off more supplies. So what they had done earlier is they had dropped off a team of rangers, and they were going to basically hoof it up the Middle Teton, up this specific route that they knew. And
probably up the ladder,
we
right?
get there, and after... Yeah, definitely up the ladder. I think that's the easiest route. Yeah, so the helicopter takes off after it lands at base camp, and I see this team of rangers actively climbing the Middle Teton as the sun is going down. So it was a really crazy experience with that and the helicopter. I believe someone had actually injured their leg. It wasn't life-threatening or anything. At least that's what we were told by our guide. Don't know if that was true. Because they tell me that ladders exist in the mountains, so who knows? But they could have just been trying to keep us calm, because I think someone had injured themselves on the Middle Teton and could not get down. So the rangers, I think, were going up to manage an evac because I don't think the helicopter can land from up there.
Sure.
So it was crazy and very scary. Are you kidding me? Like, everyone was on edge after seeing that, because we were like, oh, that can happen. That is happening. Like, that's I don't want that to be me.
And just to clarify, lucky, because I'm sure some people will think this until they watch this podcast, but luckily it was not anything to do with your group. It seems like everyone made it okay. No one needed an evac and no one got injured. So thankful enough. Hope whoever was up there got the help that they needed, and I'm sure they did. I wonder if those were the Jenny Lake Rangers.
I believe they were.
That's very cool that you saw them in action.
They are an incredible group of people, and if you're going to be in the Teton area, follow the Jenny Lake Rangers for up-to-date weather, road closures, conditions in the mountains. They're just an incredible group. They know their stuff. And I am really grateful to just know that they exist and learn from them whenever I can.
I hope whatever's happening with these layoffs with the national parks, that they are still fully operational, because they are some of the best rescue teams within the National Park Service. Like, they're well known for their climbing skill and their rescues. If you're at all interested in like rescue or evac stories, like me and Jeff are, definitely look into some of their operations that they've run, because they've had some amazing rescues. But super cool that you guys got to see them in action. Unfortunately, it's like a catch-22. It's like, oh, you could see them in action, but something's going on up there. And then you had mentioned it before that you saw them land when you guys had made it to base camp.
Yeah, so base camp is at the lower saddle, which is the like section of like a mountain pass sort of, but there's not really anything on the other side. So it's just a saddle between the middle Teton and the Grand Teton.
Mm-hmm. And that's where you guys camped out for the night, just getting some rest and preparing for your, final ascent day.
Yeah, so we get there late afternoon. We have dinner, and then we get to bed pretty early, like right after sunset. And then, the next day starts at 3 a.m.
And I will mention it here because I don't think it made it into the video. I know there's a shot of the sunset looking off of the lower saddle, but that was actually a pit toilet, correct? Was that had to be one of the most scenic poops that you've had? I know we talked about poop on the last episode. We gotta mention it at least once here.
Oh my goodness, it was gorgeous. We dinner that day, we packed in what are called ramen bombs. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically packaged ramen mixed with packaged mashed potatoes, and you put them together for this weird concoction that and this is where the bomb part comes in. It forces you to poop, essentially. Like, your body is like, what did you just do to me? You just explode, basically. So it forces your hand so that you have to evacuate. And once you do that, you feel way, way better. And it's also very filling. Like, it's a ton of carbs and just really good nutrients. To get to do what you need to do, which is climb a mountain the next day. So
it's a classic hiker meal for sure.
Yeah. So we had our ramen bombs, and it's great. So you have like these things called wag bags, which is what we call them. Basically, you just poop in a bag, and then you get to carry it out, which is fun.
It's not all
nature of it, right?
Not all parts of Leave No Trace is fun. You gotta carry out.
True.
Let's just get into it. The last day of the summit, the actual day of the summit. So for one of the trips, it was on the 4th. How did that feel the night of, going into the morning of? The tension's high.
I think it was more trepidation and fear than anything. Just a lot of anxiety, a little worry, right? Like, basically, when I saw the group of guides kind of get together in this little circle off to the side and they were talking strategy, I was like, oh no, this is serious. This is real stuff, right? Like, this is not just an easy walk up the park. They're creating a strategy to get us up to the top of the mountain. And when you're at the lower saddle, it's like relatively close to these summits.
Okay.
But it's not like actually close. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Like, it looks a lot closer than it is.
Yeah, from the ground, like from the valley floor, you look at the lower saddle and you're like, well, that's just like right there. Yeah. But when you get there and you're looking at it, it doesn't look like another 2,000 feet, but it is another 2,000 feet of climbing from the lower saddle.
It goes all vertical. Like, physically, you're next to it, but it's all just vertical at that point, right?
It's pretty close, yeah. So there's like another 45 minutes of walking, and we kind of you just kind of ramp your way up, and then you get to some of the climbing pitches. And so the whole thing, depending on the route that you go, there's tons of routes up the Grand Teton, plenty of which are not suitable for most people. But the main routes that we went up were the Exum Ridge, and the Owen Spalding route. So the Exum Ridge was the first time. More snow, more ice. It was just better for that route. It was more challenging, so there were more technical pitches involved. And that one, so you kind of have a mixture of pitches and then some sections where you can walk a little flatter because there's a ridge here, and then you can get to the next section. Yeah, so it is for the most part all vertical on your
Look,
way up to the
looks
mountain.
like it. And it was an early day for these days, right? You're starting at, what was it, almost 3 a.m. about, right? I mean, you're starting off pitch black.
Yeah, the guides get up at like 2:30 in the morning, and they start the stove at like 2:45. So it's like they're kind of ramping you up, but then the light switch goes on at 3 in the morning, and everyone needs to be ready to go within an hour. So you have like an hour maximum, and that's like from when the lights go on to when we are moving as a unit to start moving on the mountain. And there's a lot that happens in that time, and it's pretty frantic. Like there's maybe 15 minutes of like everyone's kind of shaking off those cobwebs. They're
Yeah.
getting hot water going because they boil hot water, and you get your bowl out. They talk about this the night before. Like you're going to have to sit in a semicircle. You're going to put your bowl out at your feet when you're ready. They're going to pour hot water into your mug where you've got your oatmeal, and then you're just going to eat it like a pig. Like you're slopping. You're basically just like, you're just going to shovel it into your body so you have the calories. And then you're going to pack your bag. You're going to put your harness on. You're going to make sure you meet your guide. They're going to make sure you have the gear you need on your harness. And then you're going to go because it's a long morning.
From there, you're getting up, you're getting going in the middle of the night, just about. What's the feeling getting ready to make this summit attempt?
Complete and total terror. There's no way to go around it other than that, right? It's like, this is the moment.
Yeah.
And nothing encapsulates it better than one of my students who's very excited for this opportunity. They are right behind me, and we're walking in this section right before we actually get to some of the vertical straight climbing. And it's pitch black. And my student says, "Wow, Jeff, look up at the mountain." And while the sky is pitch black, there's nothing blacker than the outcrop of the mountain.
Really?
It's like a different shade of black that I've never seen in my entire life. It's completely void of any color. And it felt like that. It felt like this big pit almost that like sucked everything out of me. And it was like, oh, that I'm going up that now in these conditions?
Yeah.
No, like I shouldn't do that. I'm not ready for that. That's terrifying. No, thank you. But my student said something like, "Wow, look at the mountain. That's crazy." And this was a moment where I was very real with one of my students. I was like, "Yeah, I'm trying not to look at that right now.
It's just
I don't
a bit
think
too
I
much.
should." Yeah, it was an overwhelming feeling
Yeah.
to have that kind of like, yeah, kind of this like gutter, like, oh, you know, like,
Yeah.
it felt like staring into Cthulhu, you know, like I don't want to be doing that right now. I don't know if I can handle it. I was real spooked by it.
I think that whole beginning bit of the summit comes across really well on the video. Like, I mean, you get to see just how absolute dark it is. You can't see past your red light in front of you, and that's it. You know, you turn around and it's just a drop off of like, oh, we're on a mountain and it's just pitch black. So absolutely crazy. I think that's a really cool moment, and I wanted to kind of build up throughout the video to get there, because I think it's insane. It's super cool, but it's insane.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain to me what it takes to finish that climb and make it to the summit?
Well, for me, it took a very experienced guide. They knew what route to take. And climbers have great names for things. So we would get to, the boulder problem in the sky. And then after we get to the top of that, then we get to the devil's butt crack, you know. They just have great names, and they act as checkpoints. So basically what's happening is any step that we can take that doesn't need to be directly like instructed to us, like put your foot here, is kind of just like me intentionally focusing on my foot placement and making sure that I don't slip. So making sure my feet are going in snow spots where like foot marks have been kind of leading the way. And then for the sections that we need to be instructed on, there's, usually, and this is where the training at Hidden Falls really, really helps. It's super windy right there. And so they're yelling at you from, across the pitch or up above you. And they're like telling you what to do, or they'll show you a little bit beforehand and then they'll do it.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
they just expect you to do it, right? Like, hey, it's time to show up and do it.
Yep.
There's a little bit more forgiveness because we have students, but for the most part, like as the adult in that circumstance, they expect you to handle it and then focus on your students.
Yeah.
So for me, the internal pressure is doubled. Like, not only do I have to perform, but I have to perform and also be a role model and guide my students.
Yep. Make sure they get up too.
It's just everything in my head is swimming at this point. Like I'm kind of freaking out, but keeping it cool as best I can and trying not to fall off the side of a mountain, and also try to instill confidence with my students and reassure them it's going to be okay. And also communicate to my guide who's yelling at me from across the pitch, like, how do I balance all that? So that's pretty much what happens for a couple of hours, right? Some version of that. And for the first time, the approach or the strategy for getting up the mountain, or the summit strategy, I guess, was to divide us into small teams, and we'd all meet back up at the top. So for that first one, I was in like a group with one other student. Like, I had one student, me, and then my guide. So it was pretty isolating, and the pressure is definitely on when you get to those later pitches.
And you guys were, like you said, going up there for a couple of hours. You were still ascending when daybreak hits. Does the light casting over the mountains kind of change that energy for you?
Yeah, it gets very beautiful.
I mean,
very beautiful. That peace definitely washes over you, and you feel like you're getting closer to.
And then there was that final leg up to the top. How was that? What did that feel like?
I mean, the first time is magical. Absolutely wonderful. It's sort of like a shock. Oh my God. It's like the mountain keeps giving you problems until it doesn't anymore. And yeah, so getting to the top was, I mean, I have this kind of like, this woo that I do whenever I get to a moment that feels like a good moment to let out energy. And I have a feeling that's going to become a thing, because I do it a lot when I'm recording. And so, yeah, this is my first woo experience, and you really get that. It's just a release of energy. Very, very exciting. And that comes across, I think, in the video.
Yeah, I think it definitely does. And I hope I did an accurate job of kind of conveying that emotions of getting to that top, and that just the success of it all. I mean, the achievement,
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Being up there with, all of the students that you worked with all summer, and then the guides that you had formed relationships with and trust with. What was that like for you? Like, what that means for you?
The most meaningful bit is just when we get to the lower saddle again, and everyone is together, and they've come down the most dangerous part. They get to really reflect on that achievement, and everyone's exhausted, but seeing the faces of my students lets me know that it was all worth it.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on while we have you here about this crazy adventure in totality, or just the summit itself of the Grand, or whatever else you'd like to kind of convey here and get across?
Well, I'll tell the story about the end of that day, and I think it encapsulates the whole experience pretty well.
Okay.
We get all the way back down to the parking lot that same day. So the start of the day is 3 a.m. We summit the mountain. We go back down to the lower saddle. We pack up, and then we go back all the way back down to the car park. And needless to say, that takes a very long time. And we didn't have any great dinner plans. So we were like, okay, let's just drive into town and get Domino's because that's what the company will pay for. So we were driving back into Jackson Hole, and everyone within about 10 minutes has fallen asleep in the car. And we've called the office and let them know that we made it back safely. And now it's just me and my coworker driving back on that lonely little highway from the park into Jackson, and night has fallen. And it's at that moment that fireworks go off in the distance.
Really?
And I start seeing fireworks go up all over. Like, it starts small and then it gets big, and then it's just a whole fireworks show as I'm driving into Jackson. And it's just the darkness, my headlights and the fireworks and a car full of sleeping campers, and this feeling inside of me knowing that I did the thing. And not just that I did the thing, but I did it well, and I really put myself to the test. And I think that encapsulates how I feel looking back on the experience, is just a lot of pride, gratitude, and joy.
Yeah.
What an incredible experience.
Absolutely. I mean, what a beautiful thing to end it on. I didn't even consider it being the 4th that you guys would be coming down to the fireworks and everything. Like that's got to just be amazing. And too bad, you know, all the campers didn't see it, but a little bit of serene peace for them.
Especially the end of a very long day. I think by the time we got back to camp, it had been a 22-hour long day of us being awake.
That is no joke. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Is there anything else you'd like to plug here while we got you?
Just the Patreon. I mean, there's a lot of really good information that we're building on that side of the company. But what's really important to both of us, and something Noah and I are both passionate about, is spreading education and awareness of skills. Like, we just want to get more people involved in the outdoors. And so join the free tier of Patreon. It's literally just submitting your information to be like, have a profile basically, and then you become a member. But you don't have to pay anything at all. It's just free information, and it's just guide for you to go out there and do your thing. So go use that. It's a lot of work on our end, and we're excited to share this information with you so that you can get yourself out there too.
Absolutely. I hope it provides some value and gets more people out there. Super cool. Thank you again for making this time and sitting down with me. Thank you guys, everyone who's watching this and supporting us. Thank you so much for your time. See you guys in the next one. We're Adventures Live. I'm Noah. This is Jeff. You can find us on all the socials. We're Adventures Live on YouTube, at Adventures Live Productions on Instagram and Facebook. We are at Adventures Live on TikTok, X, Bluesky. What are we on Bluesky? Bluesky's new for us. Are we Adventures Live Productions or Adventures Live?
Yeah, Adventures Live Productions.
We're Adventures Live Productions on Bluesky. The link for our campground Discord server will be in the description below. And like Jeff just said, you can find us on Patreon at Adventures Live. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you for the next adventure.
See y'all.
Bye, guys.